Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Good Times Hour. All right, B, take it away.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world, please put your hands together and help us welcome our very special guest. He's the living legend of the Lone Star State, the third son of a Frisbee man and the forever fan favorite at all the big Texas events. He's the big Bubba Smoker, the Montreal Steak Spice Joker, the hardcore carnivore who says more when the brisket is in the basket. He likes pork butts and he cannot lie, those other golfers may deny. He has the hustle and grind on 2 doses and is the only man who can land in a pile of it and come out smelling like roses. He can throw far, never had a car, and he'll tear up any course par. His favorite baller is Larry Bird, but the word on the street is this cat is a real course mauler and shot caller. Let's take it back to the days of yes, y'all, and keep holding on to what's golden. If the Yeti is in San Antone, this Bigfoot is roaring the North Dallas plains alone like a real Texas tornado. He's a legend in Texas, a real son of a James Griderson. Remember the Nolan, y'all. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Nolan, the little Hoondie Grider.
Hello, hello.
Right on. Thanks for joining the show, my friend.
Good.
What's up, buddy? How are you?
Doing great. What an intro, huh? That was awesome.
He does that for everybody, man, and he digs deep. He's a serious researcher, and he's a true wordsmith.
Hopefully a couple of those things you didn't take too seriously.
Butts, and I cannot lie. I love it. Right.
So just, we've got people here who do join us who, may not know a lot about disc golf history, and especially what's going on in Texas and Dallas, the whole Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area. Going off, Texas has always led the way. So we want to definitely put together a little package, a little framework, we call it, for our guests, for people out there, just to put into context who we're talking to. So Mace, why don't you serve us up on the tee on this one?
All right, so Nolan, I'm going to go through a few things, and we'll stop and talk about a couple things, and then we'll carry on a little bit further. There's like 3 different areas that I want to talk about. First of all, framework. I'm going to run through this, and then we'll talk about it real quick. But you grew up at Fritz Park Disc Golf Course and in Irving, Texas. You now live in Anna, Texas. You've been a member of the PDJ since 1998. You've been playing events since '94. Number of years on the PDGA Tour, 29. You got your current rating is 1,007. You've played in 267 career events with 83 wins. Your career earnings is $81,688. Your Global Masters Series rank is 19. And your career winning percentage is 31%, which is pretty respectable, nearly 1 in 3. So anything, would you like to expand on any of that? You want to talk about any of that, or jump into the next round?
Glad to be over 1,000 rated. I did jump under there a little bit. Now that I'm playing Masters, it's a little easier, I feel like, instead of playing against all those kids right now.
Yeah, well, so you finally, the shoe's on the other foot, like, because that's how we used to feel playing against you all those years. It's like you were one of the early youngsters that came up and really grabbed attention in terms of being, a teenager that could win at any time. And that's well, I'm glad you're experiencing that now.
Yeah.
But that career win percentage, 31%, that's a little skewed because you've had fantastic success in your AM career. You're currently enjoying great success in your Masters career. Your pro events, though, the bulk of the tournaments you played, sorry to take us right back to this right away, Mace, but you're right around that, almost a 30% winning percentage. And for a guy who really doesn't go out of Texas a lot, that's a lot of events that you've dominated in Texas. There's a real reason why you are the Texas living legend.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's a good a good stat to know there.
Well, and we're going to touch on a couple of these things a little bit further when we get deeper into all this information. But here's some more good information. You, out of 260 pro events, you played MPO at 256 of them, and you've got 76 wins out of that. So that's a 29.7 winning percentage. So obviously that extra 2% was coming from, or extra 1.5% was coming from the Masters, where you played 4 MP40 events. You've never finished worse than second. You have 3 wins out of the 4. which gives you a percentage of 75%. So that's awesome, you know.
That's some danger right there.
Now,
So according to Statmando, your current official world rank is 724, which, you know, that means very little, especially if it's raining. I mean, if it's raining, your ranking probably goes up about 850. And your best official rank was 27th in 2008. I imagine, given your current ass kicking in both divisions, but I'm sorry, I'm just reading this for the first time. This year so far, that your official ranking will rise precipitously. That's something that B popped in there. But two other things that are important. You were inducted into the Texas Disc Golf Hall of Fame in 27, and you're inducted into the all-time Bubba Hall of Fame class of 1983.
there you go.
Right.
That last one isn't as quite as official.
It's officially unofficial.
There you go. Also, just want to note about the Statmando, they also include in the whole ranking system that they do. I don't know what their special given magic with the cosine functions, but they also include all of those one-day flex start ones. And you've had a couple of, yeah, well, let's just say a couple of goose eggs when it comes to that this year so far.
Well, when they put up $2,000 ace pots and stuff, you know, this is what you want to do. So
Okay.
bunch of those are some ace running rounds there.
There's the story
Well,
behind the
you
numbers.
know, that's definitely another hook for something like that, for sure, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that we were chatting about just before we went live was, and this is something that Mace definitely has brought up, and I'll let him touch on it, but we just touched on it very briefly, saying that you kind of grew up on the Fritz course, but you essentially did, and there's a really great origin story here. But Mace, maybe you want to just repeat your observation about some of Nolan and some of our previous guests and their longevity.
Well, it's, you know, I think that we're running through a bunch of different guys right now and gals that have been, and we're targeting folks like that too, because we can still, you know, obviously we've touched base with a lot of the older players, and we're going to continue to do that too, because we want to tell the historical story of the game. But, you know, folks like you who, you know, your dad, I mean, I could only just imagine how many years your dad must have been playing. I mean, you're 40, your dad must have been playing 45, 50 years at this point.
It was at mom and dad.
Yeah, and if your dad was still with us, and that's, you know, that's a really interesting and a important fact to think about too, because I mean, think about all the different players that, I mean, like Barsby's another guy that's coming up and David Wiggins Jr. We're interviewing him in about a month, and you guys grew up on the course, you know, and not everybody has that perspective. And it's, you know, I was telling B earlier, I said, you know, I know that they lived a few houses down from the course, but in all honesty, I never went to that house. I wouldn't even know if I had to go and get you from that house. I wouldn't know which one to come to. I would know that I should go over by hole 1 or hole 9 at Fritz and look for the Griders most nights if the sun was still up. You know what I mean? And that's, you know, you weren't the only one. There was a bunch of people, a bunch of us that hung out, spent lots of time in that park. I mean, most of my time was in the winter, but after that first winter, I was like, oh, this is like my favorite course 1B. You know, at the time, Veterans was 1A, and at some point, I think Fritz actually surpassed Veterans in my book, just because, well, I mean, all the good times we had out there, but I mean, those big pecan trees and the opportunity to throw big, and plus it was on the way home from work for me quite a bit of the time too. So,
Right.
Pretty spectacular.
Fritz was awesome, man. I loved it. Arlington as well, but Fritz, you know, I knew it great. They changed it up on us now. Now it's a permanent 18. It was 9 when we were doing it. We had the back 9 that they would let us have during the tournaments. That they would let us
2 weeks out of the year, and boy, we looked forward to that, didn't we? I mean, I remember a couple times where they let it go a little bit longer. I mean, they're like, we're not saying nothing. They'll come and pick them up when they're ready. And it's like, who cares? We got Fritz for another week, you know?
Oh yeah.
And you know what I mean? That was one thing that was so cool about that park, and they're still doing it today. Is, you know, when homes went up for sale around the park, the city bought them and then made them part of the park. And that's been going on for the whole 30 years that I've been playing there and beyond, even earlier than that. And I really think that's awesome and very, very commendable in the sense that, that's, I mean, how else are you going to grow a park like that right in the middle of the city that's completely landlocked and everything like that? And that course, that park just gets better every year.
I want to say, I should know this, but I think it was put in '83. Same year.
That sounds about right. I mean, especially judging from those original baskets.
Yeah. So I think it's been there as long as I've been alive. So
those were Mach 1 conversions. Were you born in '83?
Yeah.
So some of your earliest memories are disc golf, and to be honest, it was pretty well frisbee golf back then with the discs available. I think that's a great photo on your Facebook of your dad's Kitty Hawk. His player disc that he got from the Disc Golf Association.
Right.
And I mean, just talk, like we asked you earlier, when was the first time you played, and you were like, from birth. Like, so basically your earliest memories are just stumbling out of the house and
that's it. Teething on minis. I remember playing freestyle with the old guys, which
when they were young. When those old guys were young.
Guys are walking fossils now, but hey,
those guys, and they're still out there, a lot of them.
Well, geez, if they're still walking, that's a score right there.
For sure. Ziggy King, Mike McKenzie, Kerry Rasco, Walt Davis,
Jimmis.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of them, man. They're still out there, so it's good.
A lot of times we see kids, one of the sad things to see is when a disc golfer has a child and they kind of play, but they're only playing because it's something dad likes and they don't really get into it. Or maybe they're into it at the very young age, but then they decide they want contact sports or team sports or something a little more up and zippity. And so when we see someone who stayed with the game right from teething on, that's really one of the great stories in the game, I think.
I love it. Love disc golf. Always have, always will. It'll be a part of my life till the day I die, for sure.
I was just doing one of the things about the PDGA that's great is their database, but what is limiting is if people aren't current members, you can't see their records. So I had to do a little bit of cross, pollination, as it were. I was looking at Biff Barfield's records from the early '80s, and I saw your dad there. I don't know if this was the first event that he played, or he probably wasn't, because he was himself quite a bit of a legend there. But the David Bruner Birthday Classic in 1985, Steady Ed was there too. So you were probably two in swaddling clothes, and there's Steady Ed walking by.
It's crazy. Never had a clue. Didn't even know.
Yeah, I know that Skyline was the first course that went in, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, Fritz was second. And
correct.
And if you look at those, targets, I mean, those are obviously Mach 1 conversions. I mean, the ones that we first started playing on out there with the shallow tip. Well, let me rephrase that. The ones that you first started playing on, and I came along later, with those shallow trays and everything, and then the interchains that were obviously post market. And man, I mean, it's just such a great place.
Knows you could putt on anything, it's one of those.
It's real true.
So one of the questions when I was looking at this and looking at about your dad, it said that your dad designed the course at Fritz. What was his role with? I mean, obviously he had some very deep connection, but was he the official course designer out there?
No, I want to say it was a group of them. There was like a group of 5 of those guys that I named earlier, with McKenzie and Ziggy. And I know there's more. It's just not coming to me right now.
That was maybe Thor, or maybe not.
Thor came around a few years later. I don't think Thor was a part of the actual designer crew.
That was kind of my guess about that too. Paul asked me about that recently, or we were discussing this a few days ago, and I was thinking that it was probably similar to the way we redesigned veterans, where it was a design by committee, where everybody got together and we all talked, and everybody had some input, because that was, like all those years we used to play the Ziggy hole and on all those different holes that people designed that were multiple, that were combo holes that, we were, and in fact, that was, from according to your mom, the first place you ever beat me was on the Ziggy hole. I didn't even realize it was going on, but that was when, back in the day, if you ever played Fritz, you started on the tee for hole 1, you played towards one's basket, and there was a telephone pole between hole one's basket, or kind of not really between it, but like that made the corner. So you could go around the corner and hit two. And then we had another telephone pole to the left, a 3-seat pad, right?
Correct.
And so we'd play around these 2 telephone poles over 3 holes. And we'd play for like a quarter skins or some, for $1 maybe at the most, at the max. But it was just really more for bragging rights. And I remember coming out one day after work, and your mom was out there, and she said, well, last night was the first night that Nolan ever beat you, and you should have heard him talking all night long, blah, 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 blah. Well, there's nobody talking about the one time that I beat you every now and then at my house. There's no one to hear it. So, but yeah, I remember that. And I thought, I never thought anything of it until that point. I mean, you were just my buddy one of my buddies that I played with at Fritz. And then, a few years later, it happened to Big Brother Mike. Actually, a few years earlier, it happened to Big Brother Mike. And then you were the second one of the Griders that I heard that from your mom about. But to me, I love that because, one of my proudest moments ever of being a friend of the Griders was standing there with your dad while you and your mom were dancing at your wedding, and I mean, like, that to me that's some of the most important stuff that I've gotten from disc golf the whole entire time, was friendships and being a friend with the whole family, not just friends with you, not just friends with you and Mike, but I'm friends with your mom and your dad. And unfortunately, your dad's not with us, but it made me cry too while your dad was crying that night.
Sure. That's awesome. It's a good memory.
So here's a question. You must have played Fritz 49 million times. You make up all these jungle safari animal holes, whatever you want to call them. You're playing the course backwards, forwards. You probably were so familiar with every blade of grass, every twisted Texas pine tree out there. How much money were you able to hustle off of people? Did they show up? Were you like one of those hustlers?
With those 10
Thousands
cents,
of dollars, quarters at a time.
10 cents a hole, I was able to get probably $10, no. I don't know. That's where it all started, though. If Fritz, just still to this day, I can go out there. They did redesign it. It's now 18 holes, but still, I walk out there, and every hole has got something special about it that I remember. I'm looking on trees for stuff that's been stuck on trees out there through the years. There's a manhole out there with our initials on there from the 90s, that we wrote on. And I mean,
just how many times did we bounce off the edge of that creek and down into the water? And
I would always get the disc out of the creeks too, for everybody. And
that course is, it had the ability to really, it was very unique in the sense that anybody that played there on a regular basis and like anybody that came up there and their game developed there was going to be able to play just about anywhere, because you play the short tees and you got a birdie contest. You play the standard pads, and you're going to have to throw far. You're going to have to deal with a whole lot of different obstacles in the creek and the street, and I mean, it was, I fell in love with that place almost immediately.
We had a Mando's out there. We had everything.
So Manuel Rodriguez said that he thought that Mike Moore and Glenn Hale were involved in that design, and that makes sense.
Yep,
that totally makes sense.
There we go. All right,
people are
listening and paying attention.
So another thing too that probably bears to mention right now, and I'm about to jump into this whole thing about your dad too, but Paul mentioned the Kitty Hawks, and do you remember? I mean, think back. Like, even before you were throwing an arrow, think about how many of those old guys had a Kitty Hawk in their bag. Like, none of us young guys did, but every one of them. And Mike Moore wasn't even that old, and he probably had 2 or 3 of them in his bag. And like, when nobody was spending $15 or $20 on a golf disc, these guys were spending $150 or $200 on these Kitty Hawks. And like, when we talk to Mitch Mack, we're going to talk about this too. We're going to get Mitch Mack on, and I'm hopefully going to run into him tonight. But Irving, Texas, and all of Oklahoma is like the land of the Kitty Hawk in my memory, because like all those guys from up in Oklahoma too, Mitch and Clinton, those guys, but also the big Indian, what was his name from Norman?
Ed
Brent
Brent,
Edwards. Brent Edwards always had a couple in his bag as well. And and like nobody knows about that disc now. Like none of these collectors that are spending thousands on Nate Sextons that's not even on their radar,
Yeah. I remember I took a couple of my dad's Kitty Hawks and was messing with them, and a guy come up and offered me $20 for them. So I sold them to him. And
You sold them to him?
well, about 30 minutes later, my dad had to go back and go get the disc from him, give him his money back. But yeah. He's
That
like,
might
"Hey,
have
what
been
are
the only time your dad whooped you.
you-" Yeah.
That's hilarious. So you mentioned a couple of guys as early course designers and the early course crew that you looked up to and played freestyle with. Were there any top pros from the local area or just even around Texas that you fixed your eyes on? You said, I want to beat that guy.
Sammy Grizzoffi, when I was young, was a awesome disc golfer. Mike Sager was also one of those guys. I remember at a Fritz Open one time, I couldn't tell you the year, 90 something. I was with Mace there, and we were in his white truck, his little bitty truck, and we followed the lead card.
It was this time of year. It was around 4th of July. It
was 300.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. LaRon Harris was out there, which I know he's not from the area, but he was there on that final card. I remember him, and he had that the leg bag.
Remember that? The chaps.
Yeah. And it was an awesome experience to watch those guys play, especially the course that I love so much. Got to experience that. So there's a handful. I know Craig Leyva was not from here, but he moved here to the Arlington area when I was young and starting to get good. So I looked up to him a lot, man, there's a lot of golfers that were around that were all awesome.
Well, and definitely Sammy G is one of those golfers who, really was, and also another Texas disc golf legend in the first pro world. He was the first guy to come second to Climo, by the way.
Yep.
And, just one of the guys who never really got his due, I feel. I think he was one of the most amazing to watch top-notch pros, especially for his form. He's just such a small guy. And
and that was, I think he was probably the first small guy that I ever saw that just exploded on the tee pad and would he could put things in orbit, and you don't see that kind of. There wasn't that many at the time. There wasn't that many small people, except like Mikey Sayer was another one. He wasn't that big, but he could throw far.
You don't see
not far by today's standards, but he could outthrow us back then.
Number one Heiser's 500 feet. Lightning products that are throwing 500 feet. You're like, wow. And then I remember the Cyclone came out. It was a game changer, and those guys were killing it. Then,
exactly.
Yeah. And then, the Polaris has come out, and I was like, holy cow, those things fly forever. If those guys had those discs when they were young like that, they'd have been smashing.
Oh, imagine if you had the plastic now back then.
Oh, man.
30 plus years to just warp your body around that beveled edge.
Yeah.
So since we're talking discs specifically, do you remember what your first, obviously there was discs littered in your house in your young world, but what was the first one that you called yours? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was a DX Stingray, the big stamped one, the diamond shaped one. That was
with the fish on it, with the big fish on it.
Yeah.
Talk about collector discs right there.
Yeah.
What color was it?
Yellow with a red stamp. Yellow with the red stamp.
I was watching some video of you, some other, I think it was the Nick Hyde Memorial, and I noticed, and I was watching also Veterans. It seems like you've got a bit of a taste for yellow plastic. Is that true?
I like to see them, you can see yellow. And with all my daughters, I've really turned to pink now. I throw a lot of pink discs. Seem to fly better than the others, for whatever.
Well, you can see pink pretty bright too. That's another thing.
That's right.
So
I'm getting
Sorry,
I need to.
One person at a time, please.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. So let's just there's the next section we want to talk about is starting with the PDGA record. Here you come. You're 11 years old and you play your first event. It's
Carrollton.
the Carrollton
Carrollton.
Charity Cup Classic.
Yeah.
You're in a 6-person division, and I didn't get the name of the person who finished second, but you beat him by 2 strokes. Third
Gus.
place was 50 strokes behind you guys. So it's not.
He got used to that. He used to the big margin from the very beginning.
No.
But what was it like playing your first official PDGA tournament?
Was that my first official?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Junior boys.
Golly, I can't remember that. That was so long
Okay.
ago.
All
Goodness.
right, no, that's all good. A lot
Yeah.
of water under the bridge since then.
Sure.
But I mean, your mom and dad also played that tournament. And
Mhm.
for the record, just so you know, Mace and Gotcher also played that tournament.
I'll be dang.
Jerry taking the honors over Mace in that. But okay, so you don't get scared off by it by tournament play. Obviously, your disc golf is coursing through the blood, but playing tournament golf is a little bit different. And so it obviously didn't throw you off, because some people, they're great locals, they're great league players, but as soon as it comes down to like, oh my God, we're playing, and especially with shotgun starts, there's weights and backups and all that. They're not used to that. That messes with their rhythm.
Mhm.
But you come back and you play your second tournament at the Fritz. Now you're playing in AM2. You play with the big boys, and you did pretty well. You're 9th out of 30th. That's
Yeah.
top, almost top third there.
What year was
Fourth
that?
top third. That
you know
was
what year?
1996. You're 13
96?
years old.
Okay.
So is that getting clearer now? We're getting closer to the.
I mean, I remember, vivid, very vivid, but yes, I do kind of remember. Mike Kennedy, I don't know if, I'm sure Mace Man remembers Mike Kennedy. He actually caddied for me the next year.
For sure.
I don't know if I won that next AM. If that was 94, maybe 95, I got lucky and got my first win out there. Maybe not. But I remember Mike Kennedy coached me through that and actually caddied for me my final round.
Man, that's a blast from the past too. I haven't thought of him in a long time.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought of him just now whenever Manuel said Mike Moore, I was thinking Mike Kennedy.
Yeah, and I was also thinking maybe Barry Allen and Steve Hoff.
That's Barry Allen for sure, and maybe Hoff there as well. Quite
For sure.
possible. So
1997 opens. You're 14 years old. You win your first event as an AM2, and then you move up to AM1. And you and your brother team up. No, you didn't team up with your brother. Sorry, you teamed up with Darren Sport. And your brother teamed up with Michael Tomlinson at the National Doubles. And this is one of the first big tournaments you traveled to go play. What was that experience like for you? 14 years old and you're going out of town and you're like, this is the AM Nationals.
I remember being super excited about that. I remember it rained that year. And that's when you started, that's when I was mad at my partner for not getting me close enough, and alternating shot and stuff like that.
That's really interesting. I don't remember either Darren Sport or Michael Tomlinson. And, I knew you guys really well at that point. So that's kind of surprising that you played with two people I don't even remember or know, and then also not with each other.
Mike Tomlinson was Grapevine, is what we called him. I don't know
okay. So I know Grapevine then. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I never knew. I didn't even know his first name was Mike, dude. I don't think I ever called him by name. It was just Grapevine.
Darren Sport was Bullwinkle. I don't know if you remember Bullwinkle or not.
I might remember that. I might be able to shake that loose here before too long.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that, especially if anybody that's young that's listening to this, that's watching it, that never heard about National Doubles, that was such a revered event in our area that people didn't even call it National Doubles. It's like, who you going to Round Rock with? That was like the big question in this wintertime and in the spring leading up. Who you going to Round Rock with? And if you didn't know, you didn't know. What does that mean? What's Round Rock? And it's like National Doubles, and then became World of Doubles, and and that's one of those things like we look forward to. That was like the rite of passage in the spring, like this lets you know it's time. The season's coming
That
right
tournament,
now.
yeah, that was a fun time.
And people came from everywhere.
And that was the course that was one of the holes was featured on the world's best, that collection of world's best
Whole
holes.
floor.
And so people knew about that course wide and far. And of course, that event certainly helped draw the attention to it.
Well, Chris Ware, helped with that a lot too. I mean, people knew more about that course because of Chris Ware, obviously.
And his
So
metal mini smashed in the baskets.
Oh yeah, he's watching, by the way.
so
Hey,
go ahead.
no, I was just saying hello to Chris there.
I want to transition from your early AM career, which was also one of the reasons why your numbers were a little skewed in terms of your overall win percentage versus your pro win percentage, because you were very good as an AM, and it was quite clear that this was an up and coming, a human phenomenon on the way up through the ranks. But one of the big tournaments that really is in Texas when we talk about the national doubles or Round Rock, that starts the season. What closes the season is veterans and the VPO. And at the time, you played your last AM event ever in the 1997 Veterans Park Open. I was there. I didn't do so well. You took third in this in a big field of 28 in M1.
Now I remember this card. I know where you're going with this. I remember who was there. John, my hero, aka Hero.
He's also listening right now.
What's up, my hero? Big brother Mike, and my brother beat me there, and then it was myself, and then I want to say Clayton Bethman.
Yep.
Was the lead card there. I remember that.
Nice. That might have been the last time Clayton played a tournament.
So Mike and John were tied, I think, going into the last hole, and John threw a roller and his disc broke, and the bigger half got stuck in the tree.
Ooh, I remember that. I totally remember that.
That's how he lost.
It flew, and the bigger piece went up in the tree.
Oh
The smaller piece, and they had to mark both lies, and then compare the pieces of the disc to see which one was biggest.
We just John still has that piece of plastic that broke disc somewhere. We were just talking about that not too long ago.
That's
funny.
Awesome.
Well, so that's at Veterans. Was that your first tournament experience at Veterans? Maybe not.
I think you got him on there a couple of times previous to that.
I feel
But
like
it'd be my guess that wasn't his first one.
that might not have been your first one, but that was kind of a bigger one. And this is going to segue in because, like I say, you've had a lot of experience on lead cards, especially at Veterans. You've had a lot of experience in front of the camera performing as only Nolan can perform. But that Veterans course and the changes that it's undergone to make it better, that's just been one of those epic courses that you just you circle that weekend on your calendar and you just kind of visualize and dream. So talk to us about your early impressions of Veterans and the Veterans community.
I remember we used to, playing at Fritz all the time, constantly. And then there was a new course that we went and played, Veterans. And it was long, hard, it was hilly, had rocks, beat your disc up, especially that DX plastic.
Well, plus it's a landfill, and there's glass there too, a former landfill.
Yeah.
And it should be noted, it should definitely be noted, and Fritz Club should get credit that course was installed by the Fritz Club.
Was it?
Yes, that course was scouted out. I don't know the details about how that all came about, but that was a Fritz IDSA, Irving Sports Association project.
I'll be damned.
And we'll have to ask. We should talk to Ziggy about that and find out the details on that one, because that was definitely something that we have because of Fritz and because of Irving IDSA.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
but we were doing this. See, all that stuff was happening when I was still so young. I don't really remember. When
it was just a regular Saturday for you.
Yeah,
we're gonna go play golf somewhere.
That's right.
Going to the park. Oh, it's not Fritz. Where are we going now?
Yeah. What? Where the hell is this? We out of state or what?
But it is, and for anyone who's never played it, it is a must item on your bucket list of courses to play.
through talking to other people, you either love that course or you don't. It's one or the other, you know.
Well, I've seen a lot of courses that we played a lot when we were younger, and something happens and they redesign it, and it's forced. Like it happened with both of my first two favorites with veterans and with Fritz, and I think that both of them came out of it with a totally acceptable design on the second go round, compared to the first. I mean, obviously we'd love to have the first back in either case. It's not even remotely possible at Fritz. And actually it's less and less possible at veterans all the time too, because of expansion of other activities. But, a lot of times they go in and redesign a course and nobody plays it anymore, and it's like people just kind of go somewhere else because it just wasn't what it was. And neither one of those courses, I don't feel either one of them are like that at this point. I mean, would you agree with that, Nolan?
Yeah, I mean, I think that more played now, not before COVID. I know COVID picked up the sport a bunch.
Sure.
More played now than I think it was then. So I think it was a change for the better, really.
Well, you certainly have shown consistency in tackling that better change and turning in a lot of the amazing performances at veterans as that big final end of the year thing. And maybe we could just jump right into that, Mace.
Well, so you want to let's start with those early years on pro real quick. I mean, I'll give him the background. You turned pro at the age of 15 in 1998. You cashed in your first event, second place of 19 at Victoria One Day Fling, which I sure miss Victoria. That was a lot of fun too. And I'm talking about Victoria and Irving. I'm not talking about Victoria, Texas, which is also a great course. I like that course a lot too. And very similar to Fritz, big pecan grove, big holes, lots of space to throw under the trees. Not really possible to throw over them. But anyways, so Big Brother Mike took 9th in that event. I took 19th. And your second event as a pro was Pro National Doubles with 109 teams. You played with Big Brother Mike, and you guys took 10th. And
we were pumped about that.
I'm sure you were. I mean, because like I said earlier, I mean, that was like the event in the spring. Like everybody looked forward to that. From like even at VPO, people would start saying, "Oh, who are you going to play national doubles with next year?" And because that's when you'd start shopping, I mean, like, hey, are you available? Or else you were already locked in with your buddy, I mean, and I played with Gotcher a bunch of times, and I played with Clayton once, and I played with Maero like 3 or 4 times. And I mean, I liked all those partners. I didn't really deliver much with Clayton, but me and Jerry and me and John both dropped the ball just about as much as each other.
Yeah, that year we got 10th. I want to say Mitch Mack and Crazy John.
You are absolutely right.
Yep, won that.
And Stokely and Hammett came second on that one. That was in what was that, 97?
I want to say that's the first time I've ever seen Stokely play too.
Okay.
Or throw.
What was that like?
Unbelievable. That dude killed a disc. He murdered a disc back in the day. Goodness. I mean, he still does, but to see it back then.
And that was one of the only places where you could turn him loose and there was no boundary for him. I mean,
Yeah.
It's like Zane Letts told me one time, he said, there's no courses in Texas that I don't have to hold back on.
Yep.
And, I mean, and that's like Stokely's been living that life since long, long, long before we even got with Zane's mom, with Kim. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like,
I do have a funny story about national doubles that year. We did a long drive competition and we were doing it, and Stokely was there, and they called our names out, but they did a little mix up on the names. So this guy throws, and then it was supposed to be myself and then Stokely. Well, they mixed it up. So Stokely steps up and I go, hey, I said, give the little people a chance, So I push them off, and I go to smack one, and when I do, my plant foot slips. I pinch a nerve in my back or something, and I'm sitting there, I'm crying, and I shank the disc towards the pond. We were throwing parallel with the pond. I shank it towards the pond, and it's heading towards the water, and everybody's like, get in the water, get in the water. Well, it comes up short, and then it settles down, and then there was my dad, and he goes, you suck. right at the end of it, you know, it's perfect timing. What a story.
Well, and that's your dad's sense of humor too. I mean, that
Oh.
wasn't him being abusive. That was just him going, okay, well, kid needs a poke in the rib right now.
Just
Well,
wait.
I mean, you're a cocky
Perfect
15-year-old
time.
to push Stokely out of the way.
Yeah. Thought I was cool.
Just a fun fact, by the way, national doubles, Stokely was the reigning 3-time national doubles champion up to that year, having won with 3 different partners. Stokely and Hammock won in 96, Stokely won with Mike Randolph in 95, and he won with Steve Valencia in 94. That's just one of those crazy stats. Like, will that ever be duplicated?
3 different people. That's huge.
Well,
that's
and
big.
then they said, well, maybe you should have switched on the 4th go around. But you know, that's pretty crazy. You know, I mean, have a 3, and those are all honestly, well, I mean, I wouldn't say they're drastically different, but those are very different partners. You know, I mean,
Mhm.
maybe Valencia and Randolph were somewhat similar, but I mean, Brad's a small package with a whole lot of explosion, and you know, I mean,
Now, Steve, I don't really remember as much, but I do remember Randolph. You know, somewhat. He was definitely not from here, so I only got to see him certain tournaments and stuff like that. But I do remember him. I don't remember Steve very good though.
Yeah.
yeah, I think he
somewhere in
was
the
pretty
league.
much winding down at that point.
Yeah.
We got him coming up in September.
I saw that. Yeah, that's cool.
So I think it's a sign of the times that you cash in your first ever pro event, and you know, the end of that 1999 season. That's your first real big test solo. It's one thing playing doubles, and the national doubles is a great format. It's got a bunch of different, you know, formats that you follow in terms of doubles with alternate shot and best score. But going up against these very names we were just talking about, plus some of the others in the 1999 veterans, look at that. I mean, you came 11th out of 36. Climo wins, Stokely second, Al Shack, Sean Sinclair, Barry Schultz, Ronnie Russell, Lucky Todd Branch, and then you've got the locals, Justin Landers, Mike Sayre, Leva. How was that? That's like kind of like your coming out party there. How did that feel to have to hang with the big boys?
That's awesome. I mean, that's legendary names right there. You know, that's it's big time, in my opinion. Anytime you get mentioned with those guys, that's a pretty big deal.
Do you remember any of them saying anything to you, any words of advice or suggestions?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not no.
I wonder if at 16 you could take it in. You
Yeah,
know, like, yeah, don't talk to me, old man. I got this.
yeah. Get off my box. You know, it's my.
All right, well, let's take a little pause and a little change up the format a little bit. We're going to throw a couple of rapid fire questions at you. Don't think too long at it, and some of it's a little going off course here. But speaking of course, what is your favorite course?
I would say Fritz Park still to this day.
That's an easy one for sure. What's your favorite tournament?
The Veterans Park Open.
And
Yeah, we're gonna get to that here in a minute. You've played in most
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
Is that your favorite tournament to win?
Yeah. I don't. Well, I don't really. I haven't played. There wasn't national tours and all this stuff that there is now. Back when that time was going on, when I first started doing all my big tournament wins and stuff. So when I won my A tier there, that was huge. You know, my first A tier win. So it'll always be probably one of my favorites, no matter what. So I've always enjoyed that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's right there in your backyard, and it was always, you know, it still draws a pretty good crowd. It's not drawing the top pros anymore, but I mean, it's still a great way to finish out the season, and lots of people feel that way about it. So
Yeah.
So what's your favorite non-tournament day or non-pre-tournament meal? Just like any given day. If your girls ask you, what do you want to go for dinner, Dad? What are you going to say?
I love pizza.
Or
I always want pizza. That's just me. I
okay,
always want, yeah, any
that's a
pizza.
good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, even bad
Yes.
pizza is a good pizza.
That's right.
Sidebar though, does pineapple belong on pizza?
It doesn't on mine. You know, not on mine.
Boom. There
Good
you go.
answer. Good answer.
Okay, so if you're driving around getting ready for the tournament, or if you're listening to music on your earbuds, what's your favorite music that pumps up your jam?
I'm an old soul. I feel like I like, of course, any, classic rock, growing up with the parents and stuff. I'm a big Beatles fan. I like the Grateful Dead. There's a couple punk bands that I like, stuff like that. Not too much rap unless it's like Wu-Tang or something like that. I like the old school Wu-Tang, and my playlist is very random. It hits all over the place, but
Nice.
I have to say probably just some good old classic rock.
Sweet.
So what's your, I have a feeling you don't feel guilty about much, but what's your favorite guilty snack?
Dude, I have all them kids, man. And how many Nutty Buddy bars and zebra cakes we have.
Like there's no guilt when it comes to snacks at your house.
Yeah.
Somebody else might feel guilty, but you're not.
No, not.
All right, let's talk some sports teams here. We got a lot of times we have talked to people who have either grown up on one side of the country and relocated, or something in their childhood attached them to. So we're just going to go through different leagues and see what your favorite sports team is, or if you have one. We'll start with college football.
No, I've never really watched football.
How about college basketball?
No college.
NFL.
Cowboys. We used to live, and the Cowboys, we used to live right by the stadium. So yes, we did live next to Fritz, a few houses down, but before that, we grew up probably a mile away from the stadium. So I could hear games, I could hear concerts going on.
Nice, cool. That was long before I met you, though.
Yeah, parents in the front yard drinking a cold beer, listening to Zeppelin, and I had no idea what was going on,
Nice,
So
that's cool.
Awesome.
That's good. Do you have a favorite NBA team? The Mavs or?
Yeah, I'd say Mavs. I don't do too much basketball, but I would choose the Mavs if I had to choose one.
Baseball?
And of course, the Rangers.
Okay.
Yeah, did play a lot of baseball growing up, so baseball is one of my favorites besides disc golf.
Okay.
What about NHL?
Huh?
What about NHL?
Well, I'd have to go with the Stars. I don't watch much hockey, but I know the Stars I know who to say on this podcast here.
Well, especially if you want me to take you sometime.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
I think you've already answered your favorite sport to watch is baseball.
Yeah.
Okay, so other than golf, then what's your favorite sport to play? Football with your daughter?
Yeah, I mean, I have a daughter that's pretty damn good at football. I like golf. I like real golf. I don't know if you call that a sport. Is that a sport or a game?
I think you're going to get more in trouble by saying real golf.
Real golf.
Yeah, come on, fucker. I mean,
yeah.
Okay, so final rapid fire here. This is what I call the nerd alert. What's anything that you freak out on? Any geek things out there? Video games or Pikachu or?
I like sports cards, so I've gotten into sports cards lately. If you show me some nice numbers,
retro habit. I like it.
Yeah, so sports cards is my thing, I guess.
That's probably no danger of your girls taking any of those either. That might be the only thing you own that's safe.
Right.
See your clothes walking around on your kids and, anything else that belongs to you.
My daughter had come out of the room the other day with a 97 Fritz Open shirt. And I was like, goodness, where'd you find that shirt?
The chain with the chain ring?
With
the chain ring.
And my mom, she ran a Women on the Fritz. There was a women's only tournament.
I remember that.
Got 100 women, over 100 women that day come out. And that was 90s. That was late 90s, mid 90s. And so bunch of those shirts.
And we had some stats here. We said something that your mom, was it the VPO, or we kind of skipped over that particular event, but your mom played in an event where there was like 9 women or something, and she came in third or something. I was like, 9 women back then? That's unheard of.
It was 11, and it was at that Carrollton Open.
Yeah, see, there you go. I mean, like that was when you were 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there
I
was
wanna say-
11 women at that event like that. I
That's
don't
huge.
remember events like that. Like I remember there maybe being 3 if they were lucky.
I want to say, if I had to guess, I would guess Becky Powell won that. It would be,
I think that's a very safe bet.
yeah.
You can
I-
easily put $500 on it and expect to get your money back.
I'm gonna go look that up, but in the meantime, let's move on into what you throwing. This is a new segment we're gonna try to add here. Mace?
Yeah, and obviously we're copying off of what a lot of people else are, other people are doing with the in the bag. But this is a really cool comment that B dug up. It's a Reddit comment to a question. Are there any 1,000+ rated players that carry only 3 or 4 molds? And someone answered that you only carry 5 or 6 molds. And so let's talk about your bag. What's in your bag right now? What are you throwing?
I like a destroyer. I have 2 destroyers that I throw, one stable, one not so stable. I got
Right.
a rock. So destroyer, rock, arrow.
7 arrows.
I still putt the arrow, and now that I'm a little older, I throw those strikes. I like those strikes. They stand up and go a long ways. Only certain ones. A lot of them are understable, but you get a hold of a good one. And that's it.
4.
That's
TL.
4 molds.
I have a TL that I throw on certain
Of
shots.
course you do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I remember. Okay, so here's going to be one of my first stories with Nolan memories. I remember after we went to the championship one year, and I got like 25, maybe not. I got at least 15 super jewel TLs that had my stamp on them, a Mace Band stamp on them, and we went to Tulsa afterwards for the Oklahoma Open, and we were on Hunter, that hole that you throw over what used to be a pond that's now dry completely and grass all grew up in and everything. And you were bombing this big shot up in the air, and you get up to a point where it needed to continue to turn over and start diving, and it was falling out of the air. And you did it like 3 times in a row. And I was getting madder by the minute because I knew that I was about to give up these TLs to you because that was the shot you needed. That was the disc you needed. So I reluctantly went over to my bag and I pulled it out. I go, here, try this. And you threw it and it got to the same point where the others were falling out of the sky and it turned over and then it took off. And so I went over to my bag and I got the other one and I go, here you go, throw this one and you can have them, you bastard. And because I really wanted them, but it was obvious to me. I mean, we were traveling together too. So it was one of those things where I got to help my brother out, and this is what he really needs. And I don't think you even knew it at the time. And you're like, Bubba, what was that? And I go, it's a TL, not a T, a TL. And you're like, I'm going to need some more of that. And I was like, I was afraid of that, because I had those saved for myself, and so I had to give up some of them to Nolan, because then back then you never knew how many you were going to get. Like when you saw him, and if there was 10, especially even if you were at the warehouse, if you liked them and there was 10 of them, you better get them all because they might not be the same the next run, and you just might not ever see them again. And by the way, Barry Allen confirmed that what Manuel said was true. It was Mike Moore and Glenn Hale were involved in that as well.
Yeah, there we go.
And since we're clarifying the historical record, it was Tracy Nations who won the AM1 ladies.
Tracy.
Earler girl.
Yeah. There you go.
So let's look at your years at the Veterans Park Open, because this does bear some impressive. Your big win. Let's go. For your first win is 2002 in the pro field. You get $1,500. It's a nice little payout there in 2002, and you're 4 strokes ahead of Lucky Todd Branch. This is your first
He's still
huge
mad about
win
it
now.
too, I'm sure.
What are some takeaways from that tournament? What do you remember, and what was?
Or do you remember anything?
Yeah. Okay.
No, I don't really remember it. I really don't. It was so long ago.
Now, at any time you've ever played there, and certainly any time that I've seen some of the footage, but I imagine anytime you're playing in Texas, the whole crowd is behind you. In fact, I remember one of the comments from the commentators was even his bad shots are cheered by the crowd.
Yeah. The love support I get from the people is unbelievable. I've never experienced anything like that with people behind my back that have my back. I mean, people I don't even know, that cheering for me. I played a tournament. I made a lead card with I think it was Macbeth and Wasaki, and it was the Nick Hyde Memorial.
Yep, there was a special sixum on that one.
Yeah, the sixum. And when they introduced me, I had to back off of the tee box because the crowd wouldn't settle down enough. I mean, people were throwing their hats in the air and high-fiving each other when I got introduced. It was kind of a big deal. I was like, goodness, I'm famous,
Did it affect how you threw?
Nolan came up and talked to me like towards the end. Like I started walking with him at late in that, and he goes, Bubba, like these people really like me. And I was like, yeah, no shit, Nolan. They've been liking you the whole time. And it was like, it was genuine. He was surprised. He was like, wow, I guess I just never really wrapped my head around it completely. And he probably didn't say exactly that, but I mean, that was the gist of the conversation. And I was just like, yeah, dude, of course, man. This is where you're from. You're those guys over there. You're that guy from here, and then maybe that was what helped put it into perspective for you. But that was the truth. I mean, it's really cracked me up since you started playing Masters too, and everybody's like, oh my God, look at what Nolan's doing. And it's like, oh my God, who didn't see it coming? I mean, as soon as you got to move into that next division and didn't have to play against the youngsters, of course you were going to do well. And it's you're our original local wanderer. I mean, I'm not trying to take a lot of credit, but I did drag your ass out of town for the first time. So
wasn't for
several
you.
times after that.
Yeah, if it wasn't for you, I anytime anyone ever asks anything, I always say that you're the one that grabbed me and threw me under your wing and said, let's go hit up these
so
tournaments.
much fun. We had such a good time.
Oh yeah.
Well, I
think we're going to get to a couple of those stories here in a minute, but let's talk more about the VPO. I mean, dude, your history of the VPO, I mean, it started, the first one was in, if I'm not mistaken, it was either 92 or 93. And your first one was 97 and your last one was last year. So, I mean, I don't see 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15.
You haven't missed a year.
15. Yeah, you've hit them all, right?
I believe so. I think
Every
so.
year since 1997.
If I didn't make it emergency of some sort,
sorry, 1998. That was the only one that's not on the record.
There must have been a kid being born back then or something.
Yeah, that's very true. No, that was a little early. That was a little early.
That was a little early. He's 15.
Oh yeah. What am I thinking? Okay, never mind.
But just before we get specifically the veterans, and we can talk about that because it does connect, but certainly when we're talking about the Nick Hyde performance or that final sixum, which would only happen because you had tied Schusterick and they decided, okay, let's add it up to 6, which was great. But you throw the shots. It's not just that you're a charming, dimple-cheeked, wonderful native son, but you can bomb it and you can thread the needle and you can put it exactly where you want. And there was one hole on, I don't know which one it was, but you threw the most perfect shot that this player had seen the entire weekend, and you put it up there for an easy eagle 3.
Yes.
There's a reason why you're loved, and you take it on the course and you show why. That's amazing.
It has nothing to do with the way you throw an arrow.
For sure. Sponsored by Latitude at that time in that tournament. So
That's
I was
right.
Sponsored by Latitude. I threw a judge in on that instead of an arrow.
So let's talk about that real quick. How, we kind of skipped over it, but you were sponsored by Latitude for a brief little bit, and even shorter period of time you were sponsored by Discraft, but for the most part it's pretty much all been Innova. So how did you get along without the arrow? Because I mean, honestly, dude, I think I knowing you as well as I do, I'm pretty sure you could pick up just about anything and not miss anything in your bag except for an arrow.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that you would always come back to missing that arrow.
Yeah, I'm a big arrow fan. I like the way they glide. They're a bigger disc. I get it. It's more frisbee-ish. I grew up throwing frisbees, so it brings back the good times of growing up and playing and putting a lot of hyzer on something and letting it stand up or whatever. Getting a big turnover, a nice slow turn off of them. I mean, there's not another disc that does that, in my opinion. I think the arrow is one of the greatest discs ever made, especially for frisbee throwers, you know.
Well, and there's not really anybody in your era that would have taken the time to figure that out either. Cause I mean, there were so many other options, you know, I mean, it's what prompted you to even pick that up? I mean, is it something that you threw the whole time since you were real little, or was it something that you just?
Yeah, Dad threw them, and so I just had access to them, and I threw them, and then when I tried to throw an AVR or something else, you know, it just fell out of the sky. It didn't have that glide that I was looking for, and I couldn't get fly ever. But so I put the arrow back in there. It worked, you know.
Well, that's,
Still
you know, the thing that Barry talks about, and the thing that we all know, is that everybody's their proportions are different. Different discs fit in their hands differently, and just the connection the mind makes with what's in one's hand. What works for you may not work for another person, but
Right.
when you do find that mark, when you find that disc, I imagine it must have been hell having to be, you know, you must have snuck in the arrow a couple times, even though you're sponsored by other disc makers.
You know, I will say that is not true. I
Okay.
I'm not true to anything that I was sponsored to, you know, anything like that. But yeah, the arrow is one of the greatest discs ever made, in my opinion.
Good, no
Goodness,
comment.
it has gotcha. I know I was watching the 2017 first round MPO, which was shot amazingly. That's when you're playing with Eagle and McMahon. And the commentators, it was Nate Sexton and Big Germ were commenting, and they mentioned multiple times about your spin putt and your use of your control of the arrow. And I think it was on hole 2, you found a nice, sweet little alleyway and put it right up there. So that's perfect. Texas doesn't have too many trees. So when you can be that kind of guy who can thread the needle perfectly,
It's a game changer
it's a game changer.
for sure.
Okay, so let's get into this story, because this story is one of the funniest stories that definitely Macy told me the other day, and I was laughing. Maybe not my derriere off, but certainly much more than I'm used to. Growing up in Texas, you don't really need to travel when you're growing up there, because maybe it's been surpassed now, but for the longest time, Texas led the way in terms of overall numbers of courses. And with the number of courses, you have the number of players and the number of tournaments and leagues and minis and all that. You don't need to leave the state. But one of your first times leaving the state, Mace.
So, all right, so this was the second time that Nolan went to USDGC with me. The first time he went was the year before, and Clayton went with us as well. But I picked up Nolan.
What year? 2004?
This is 2003.
2003.
This is 2003. All right. So I picked up Nolan, and okay. So I'm gonna go back to the first one first, though, because this is really short, but it's gonna be hilarious. I picked up Nolan to go to USDGC the first time with Clayton, and I'd already picked up Clayton because he lives closer to me than Nolan, and now we pick up Nolan, and then we're just gonna get on the highway and roll. And Nolan comes out with all of his stuff, and he comes out with the small size Revolution bag. I mean, like maybe fit 12 discs in it with the putters. And I go, "Where's your spares?" And he goes, "I don't have any spares. That's all the discs I got." And I was like, "Shit, man, you gotta have spares on this trip." And he goes, "What do you mean, Bubba?" And I go, "Dude, you might not come home with half of those already right off the bat." And he goes, "No way, man. There's no way I'm gonna lose that many." I was like, "You don't have any idea. You don't understand." And so we go to USDGC and everything, and I don't know why, if Clayton must have been somewhere else when this all went on, but we were in the warehouse. It was after hours, and Harold and I and I don't remember if Clayton was there, but he must have been. But you came walking up and you had this many discs. He goes, "All right, Bubba, I got my spares." And you still hadn't been to the course yet. And I go, no, that's not enough spares. Go get some more. And he goes, "Well, what if my stack gets too big?" And Harold goes, "Then you're going to have to get a box, aren't you?" Nolan's eyes got like that big because he's in the candy store, you know what I mean? Like, and he was being polite. He wasn't trying to go too far. And I'm like, "Go get more, dude. This isn't going to cut it. You need to have like 5 to 10 of everything you love." Like,
especially when Willy Wonka says, "Go ahead, pick it out."
Yeah. And so, okay. So that being said, then later on, next year, just me and Nolan, I go pick him up, same house up in Watauga. And we get all our stuff in the car and we roll out. First question was, where are we staying tonight? And I go, I don't know. And he goes, what do you mean you don't know? And I go, it doesn't matter, man. Well, somebody will put us up or we'll get a hotel. And then he goes, no, seriously, where are we staying? I go, dude, I don't know. And he goes, I can't believe you don't know where we're staying tonight. I go, it'll take care of itself, Nolan. And then we're rolling along and he goes, still haven't seen Price is Right yet. And I go, I guarantee you that's going to happen before this trip's over, because that was the same year that it happened. And everywhere I went, somebody wanted to watch it with me. And I was like, don't worry about that. That's going to take care of itself, right? So we're driving along. Shreveport's like 3 hours away. And, we get about an hour and a half out of town. And Nolan goes, I still don't believe that you don't know where we're going to stay tonight. And I go, damn it, Nolan, quit worrying about it. It's going to take care of itself. And it came up at least one more time before we got to the park. All right, so we're going to play the Louisiana State Championships at Clyde Fant Park. And if you haven't been there before, it's in the parkway. It's between the lanes of the highway, but it's not a highway, it's a parkway. So people aren't going that fast. But it's got the tall pole lights that come down on the cable when they have to change them and everything. And every time I've ever run a Mace Band doubles in that park, it started at dark. And doubles that night started at dark too. So we roll up, we sign up for doubles, we get ready to play, and
is it random draw doubles?
No, it's bring your partner. Let's bring your partner. So naturally, I got one of the best partners in the tournament, Nolan, and our friend Rusty Banks, who RIP Rusty, he just passed away recently. But Rusty Banks was a big gambler, and he had lots of points at the casino. And so Rusty puts up a night for Friday night, Saturday night, and I think it was Sunday night too, for the best double score for an out-of-town team. Well, Nolan and I won doubles by at least a couple strokes, and we got that free night at the casino. The only drawback for Nolan was that he was only 19 at the time and he couldn't go to the casino. He just had to stay in the room. So we go play, we get done with doubles, we run back to the room, and Rusty told me at the beginning of doubles, he goes, when you guys get done, come to my house. My mom's cooking dinner. And so we go back to the hotel, we get moved in, and we both take showers, and then we go over to Rusty's house. We walk in the front door, and Rusty's girlfriend comes up to us and goes, what do you want to eat? And she ran down, apparently Rusty's mom just lived down the street. So she ran down the street to get us plates of food. And she goes, and when I get back, we're going to watch The Price is Right with you. And I was like, okay, Nolan, I told you it was all taken care of. You just didn't have anything to worry about. And it was all unknown to us, but taking care of both of us. What do you need from me now, buddy?
And see, ever since then, I didn't ask any more questions. I just kind of went with the flow,
I think that's a great story, especially you bugging them right at the beginning of the road trip about where you staying and when are we going to watch the show, and it just happens 3, 4, 5 hours later.
What a memory. About that.
So now let's fast forward over the years. You've had a very awesome career, as we saw earlier. At one point in 2008, you were the 27th ranked in the world. But now we start 2023 and you've got an early birthday. So it's not like someone say, like for me, my birthday is in December. So I could play that whole calendar year, our birthday, as a 1 year younger. But for you, I think you only got to play the first event, was early in January.
Waco, dynamic disc thing.
The straddle and the Brazos, which you win. Your first ever MP40 event. Like your first ever junior event, you come in just hot and smoking, and you follow that up. Now, a lot of people, when they get to the 40, they just stay in that protected blend, but you kind of cherry picked. You went to a C tier for your second event, played MPO, and you win that. Hey, it's a little bit different, but
sure,
you still got another win. The next event, the Cedar Hill Chill. You play MP40 and you win that one. You start the year this year with 3 hot wins.
Yeah.
How's that feel? How's that feel to be coming out shooting like that out of the gate?
You get excited when you have a chance to play a different division, and I was excited. So those Masters wins I was looking forward to playing those. Let's see, that C tier, that MPO win. I think that was just lucky. I just think I got squirrely in that and lucked one out on that one. I think that next event though is the next one A tier. My fourth event this year, maybe. I could be wrong.
The fifth event was the Waco Charity Open A tier.
Yeah, there you go. Now
Yeah,
that one, that was a big one for me. I was happy to win that one. MP40. That went into a playoff.
Well, and that's 54 people too that you were up against. So that's a nice fat field.
Yeah.
That's your first A tier event as a 40-year-old. You think back to some of your big events when you were just starting, how far the sport has come and how big the payouts are now. Like it's
getting there.
It's getting there, right?
Yeah, it is for sure. It used to be a game. Now it's people's lives. It is people's career. I mean, you can make a living doing this now, as opposed to you could back then too, but you had to win and be a somebody. You couldn't just take fourth and fifth place and get by. You'd actually have to win stuff. But nowadays you can take fourth, fifth place with sponsors and stuff like that. Bonuses and all that good stuff nowadays.
Well, and certainly you're playing some of the big events and you're finishing well. And what makes it even more difficult is you've got a very large family at home, and you're not doing the full-time travel. You're doing the full-time dad, full-time partner. Congratulations, by the way. Happy belated 10th anniversary to you, Crystal.
Crystal.
But that's not easy to do, and you're continuing to show them, the old guys and the young guys, how much ammo you still got left in the gun.
Well, I have noticed it's you play Masters, you shoot good, you'd be like, man, I wish I would have played Open this weekend, or stuff like that. But I still feel like I got a little game left, especially if I can make some shots happen. I still feel like I can compete in the Open now. I damn sure can't throw as far as I used to, and I can't throw as far as these kids nowadays. These kids nowadays are impressive. I couldn't imagine throwing a disc that far when I was that young. Like I said, the disc have changed so much that 500 foot's nothing now. When I was young, 500 foot was a big deal. Now people don't.
I mean, with a 13 speed, if you'd had 13 speed, 12 and 13 speed discs back then, you would have been throwing a lot farther as well.
Sure.
But remember that time when we were throwing under the bridge at Waco?
Yeah.
But Willie got a hold of that one and threw it over on the apartment. It's probably 500 feet to carry the water going straight right there. And, and we were under the bridge in the parking lot. So we had the benefit of the pavement, not of the dirt where everybody used to throw from previous. Mm-hmm. And he just shanked that thing at a 45-degree angle. It still carried the water and the sidewalk and all the yard and ended up on somebody's porch over there in those apartments,
One of the throws I've ever seen, for sure.
Yeah. And, and that was a slow disc. That was probably like a 9-speed. It probably wasn't even a 9. It was probably like a 7 or an 8,
Yeah. Yeah. Cyclones were a big deal. I think it was a cyclone.
It might have been, and it's just crazy different how everything goes like that now.
Yeah. It was always the big arms on the Brazos, and that was always the one where it brought out the big arm throwers. And I mean, you remember in '98 when Chris Max Voigt I think he won the Waco Charity Classic.
Oh yeah.
And him and Stokely were throwing their bodies out of alignment, trying to get it across the river and trying to who could throw farther than the other.
But, I remember some other people that that those guys could get it every time, and other people would just reach the other side, but Stokely be 15 feet up in the tree on the other side, and Matt and Chris too, Chris was bombing them far. And just to clarify, so that there is an event in Lubbock that Nolan and I went to a few different times called Big Arms on the Brazos, which is a separate, different event that isn't
right.
And the Brazos isn't nearly as big up there either. However, we've had plenty of good times in Lubbock as well. Me and Nolan together probably went. I bet we went at least 3 times to that tournament, if not more.
There's a picture of us somewhere. I remember seeing it not too long ago.
Nolan, do you have any of your own? Mace has told one of his favorite travel stories with Nolan. What about, do you have any favorite travel stories with Mace, told from the Nolan perspective?
So there we were, right? You see, we were at Ryan's house, right? We were staying at USDGC. We stayed at Ryan's house. I don't
Ryan
remember.
Baker.
Yeah. And Mace went to sleep early that night, and Clayton and I had a few drinks and this, that, the other. So we come in and lay down in bed at that house. It's kind of, I feel like I remember it kind of being in the woods. It was real quiet in there. And
Yeah, it was definitely wooded. And plus it was a hardwood floor.
Hardwood floor. And so we're laying there, and Clayton, he grabs this little pack of donuts.
Powdered donuts.
Starts eating those donuts, and after about the third donut, Mace wakes up and like, "What the hell is that noise? What are y'all doing?" And that I just remember laughing my ass off about that. And then another time with Mace, when he dozed off and he hit that, he lost his mirror, his side mirror on his van. I was actually sleeping in the passenger seat when he did it, and he woke, boom, he hit that cone or that light, whatever it is, that traffic divider
thing.
We
were going north on 35, and we just crossed into Iowa.
Right
there by Lamoni, if anybody's familiar with Lamoni. Like, we hadn't even passed the Lamoni exit yet, and it was all under construction back then. And there was all these barricades that were along the side of the road, and Nolan had fallen asleep. Like, Nolan would get in the van and shut the door, and he could be asleep like in 3 breaths, like pretty much on the way to anywhere. And he had this gator, he had this stuffed gator that he could travel with that he used as a pillow. And like Nolan would be like all up against the gator. And I used to call him the gator loving Hoondie. And
right.
Dude, we didn't get, I mean, we probably left from Kansas City that night. I bet we didn't even pull out of Howes driveway, and Nolan was already sleeping. And so we get across Iowa, and I'm like starting to get tired, and I nod off, and I get a little too close and slap the rear view on the passenger side. And both of us were like, it knocked the mirror off, not the mirror itself, but the mirror, not the whole.
You asked me what happened, right? You're like, what
silly.
what do you mean?
I look over there, and the mirror's still there, but the mirror itself was gone. Yeah, I stayed awake after that.
Yeah, Mace I spent a lot of time with, so I grew up with Mace, and Mace and I have done some incredible things. And like I said, if it wasn't for Mace, I wouldn't be the golfer that I am today. That's for sure. Or the person.
You'd probably still be kicking ass, but you certainly wouldn't have kicked ass in as many spots.
Yeah.
Like, I remember, so here's a good one. Here's a good Nolan story. First year, we go and all right. So this is a great story. All right. So remember that, I can't remember the dude's name, but he had that boat out at Joe Pool Lake. Scott Jones. Remember Scott Jones? Okay, so Scott Jones invites us all out to go out on the boat. Were you with us that time? Or was it just me and Clayton?
No, I was. Yeah, you smashed Clayton.
But okay, so we're in Scott's Tiga ski boat out at Joe Pool Lake, and this is like 3-4 days before we're leaving for USDGC. It was gonna be me, Nolan, and Clayton, and Scott's like driving like a madman, just hauling ass across the lake, and he turns around and goes, "Watch this!" And he turns back and he just slams it to the left, and I'm sitting on the left side, and Clayton's sitting on the right side of the bench seat. And like, I had my arm kind of over the edge on the thing, and there was no stopping me. And I went straight across the back of that boat. And all I could think of was me and Clayton are going out of the boat. We're going into the water. Like, when I hit him, we're going to go over the edge of the boat and into the water. But that ain't what happened. Like, I just,
we'll call you 250. We'll call you 250 pounds at the time, right?
Easy.
And Clayton had to have been 170
at the most.
And you just absolutely.
I mean, he's still the same size today. So, I mean, if you know him, you know him. But I slammed him into the side of that boat, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had a broken rib or two.
Oh,
but he went and he got the Texas State spot, and he wasn't able to play. Like, we went out and we played a practice round, and he goes, "I don't think I should do this anymore." And I was like, "All right, well, don't do it until you feel better." And he goes, "All right, well, I'm going to wait till the next round." And he tried, and he couldn't get in the tournament.
Get better, yep.
And so he just hung out with us all week. And, you know, I'm sure he had a good time, but he was bumming and everything. But Nolan throws this shot on hole 5. And he throws it like he boomed it, as we would say back in the day. And he's in the neighborhood of the tree. And there's only one tree on the fairway of that hole. and he's in the neighborhood of this tree, and he's like looking at it. And he told me about it later. I wasn't on the card when it happened, but this happened during the round, and probably your first round, if I'm not mistaken. But he tells me, well, yeah, so I went for it. And I go, what happened? And he goes, well, I crossed land and I hit right by the peninsula and slid into the water, or like on the corner of the point and slid into the water. And I go, did you make the putt? And he goes, hell yeah, I made the putt, circle 4. And I go, do you realize how many people have a circle 4 or a 3 on that hole? And he's like, no. And he goes, yeah, I do now. And I go, why is that? And he goes, because I mentioned it in the parking lot. And Klima was close by, and he was walking away, and he did like a ball kick turn and turned right back around. He goes, you got what? And got right up, like got right in the conversation, wanted to know, you got a circle 4 on hole 5? Do you realize there's only one other person that's got a 3 on hole 5? And it was Stokely from the other side, and then Gangloff later from the other side. And so that was that. I vividly remember that, because you were like, dude, Klima just turned around and got right back in my face and got right in the conversation. He's like, you did what? And, you know, and he wasn't being mean. He was just shocked.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, but that was the kind of thing, like Nolan went out there and he made an impression, and everybody embraced him there, just like they do here, including one of my all-time favorite Innova people, Trey Johnson's 3-year-old daughter. Sydney fell in love with Nolan. And this was when we were staying at Ryan Baker's house. Right across the street from Ryan Baker's house is the original course in Rock Hill. And at the time it had Mach 1s, original Mach 1s. And it's a pitch and putt course. You could get an ace probably twice in any round. So we went out there with Trey, his wife, and his 2 daughters. And Sydney's just wandering the park singing, Nolan! Nolan. And dude, she was so in love with Nolan. But later that night, we went back to Trey and Sam's house, and Sydney went to the bathroom, and Nolan and Clayton went outside to putt, and she came back and she's like, where's my Nolan? Where's my Nolan? And this is a 3-year-old little girl. She was head over heels for Nolan. It was awesome. And then only recently did she get over being embarrassed about being reminded of those stories. But there was times, like one time she came up and gave me a big hug. It was my first time to see her. And I go, oh, hold on a second. I pulled out my phone and I dialed Nolan up. I go, hey, hold on a second. I got someone for you to talk to. And she wouldn't even talk to him on the phone. She was so embarrassed.
That's hilarious. I remember all that. I do.
Such good times.
Yeah, disc golf, man. Family, friends. I mean, you build bonds with people that are brotherhood. You know,
it's all about GT.
Yep.
You know, it even the tide and times move on. It's still something we always have. We've shared together and grown together, and you know, thanks to the magic of technology, we can stay connected together. But Nolan, we want to thank you so much for taking all this time to come on the show and try to get a word in edgewise with these 2 long talkers.
Yeah, that was great. Well, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. You know,
and the world needs a lot more Nolan, and you know, just like Trey's young daughter, everybody loves Nolan.
Everybody loves Nolan. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So, you know, hopefully your neck injury proves to be minor and you get back on the horse and we see some more awesome stats pile up for this 2023 season.
Yes, sir.
And you know, just keep doing that grind. I know you're working hard. You're doing a lot for your family, and you're still playing at a very high caliber. So that's just kudos to you for all of that, for everything you do.
So hey, let's I'm gonna run through some folks that stopped by. You know, because I'm sure you'll want to hear who was paying attention too, but Chad Lefevre, Keith Mason, James Egan, the Hoffmeister, Chris Ware, the Seahorse, Christopher Ellis, if you remember him from the old days at Veterans, he's in Vegas now. Barry Allen, Josh Day, Ray Murray, repeat Bud Hill, Carl Visser, Travis Powell, Jason Stam, your mom, and I mean that really, it was your mom. I'm not just being a smart ass. Hello, Nelda, love you. Sam Bell, Nathan Bittner, Randy Wim, Tommy Hollub, Steve Schultz, Daddy D. Let's see, a bunch of repeat people commenting. Tommy, Jesse Santiago, Pepper, Mairo, David McDonald, Billy Leonard. We had a lot of people stop by today. We're starting to grab a crowd, folks. Thanks for stopping
Good.
by. We really appreciate it. Jerry Tulin and Jamie Callis. I'm sure Jamie will have to hear that story about Clyde Fant. Jerry Seabolt, Zane Letts, Mark Thomas. I hadn't heard from Mark in forever. So there you go. That's a lot. We had a lot of folks stop by.
Yeah.
Stop by to see you, Bubba. And thanks for bringing the heat all the time, pal.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hey, so travel safe, man. What, you flew in and you're driving home, I assume, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll be leaving out, I think, on Thursday this week, heading back home. So.
Well, right on, dude. Well, look forward to seeing you soon. And thanks again for stopping by. And we'll have to figure out how to make some more memories in the not too distant future.
Absolutely.
Teeth, maybe, or something like that.
I do want to say.
Hey, punch it in. Talk about your event real quick.
Oh, yes, August 26th. I do have an event. It'll be my first one that I'm actually kind of helping run. I'm working with Peak Events. We're going to be doing something at the Rough Rider Stadium, the AAA ball club there in Frisco. We'll have a $5,000 ace pot and stuff like that. So it's worth clicking on a link somewhere on my timeline or something, looking into it. But it's called Disc at the Diamond is the name of it. So
what's the date on that?
August 26th.
Nice. Right on.
See about making that. Run over there and ring up that ace pot.
Yeah. Really not to, you know.
I'm due.
I just wanted to say that I love you, Crystal, and kids, if they're watching, because I know that they're out there. I just wanted to say.
Did Crystal not come on the trip with you?
No, she is. She's in the other room. I'm in Grandma's room right now.
Oh, okay. I was like,
So.
I thought Crystal went with you on that one.
No,
well,
just
that's cool, man. And it's like, man, every time it's been a while since I saw any of your girls in person, but every time I see them, they're a little taller, and now I just see them by photos, and holy cow, man.
Oh yeah, growing like weeds, man.
And just to clarify, he does only have 5, but if his mom comes over, then there is 7 women in the house.
That's right. And don't forget 2 girl dogs too, you know, don't forget that.
Oh, you're never gonna get ahead.
Well, all right. You keep your head above water, keep smiling that smile. It lights up the room, pal. Definitely.
I appreciate you.
We'll see you down the road, pal.
I'll have a good one. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Nolan. Love you, bro.
Love you, Mace. Thanks, sir. Bye.
All right, talk to you soon. All right, B. Well, that was another good one. We damn near got through your script for the first time ever, and
Oh, Crystal was paying attention. She was on the Zoom webinar.
oh, nice.
In the chat, she said his wife, LOL. Just right there. Yeah, when he was saying.
I see it.
Well, all right, Mace, good job there. You enjoy Flagstaff and perambulate around. Talk to the old school guys. Maybe you wangle a couple people for more guest appearances.
I'm gonna go get a new notebook, and I'm gonna go get some of those flyers printed up and start handing them out. And I'm gonna write down names and numbers in the notebook.
Nice. And
email addresses. So hopefully, like if as I've said or on the poster, we're pretty much scheduled up all the way to USDGC. We will be doing a bunch of interviews at USDGC as well. And then we're gonna go, as Paul and I discussed recently, we're gonna do, the 3 Sundays after that, and then we're going to call it a season at the end of October due to my obligations with the Christmas Light Company. November pretty much doesn't belong to me anymore for at least the foreseeable future. And we'll do a couple shows late in December, including the PB&J New Year's special again. There will be shenanigans and tomfoolery involved with that one for sure. And anyways, that's pretty much what I got for now. If you see me tonight, if you're watching now and you see me tonight, hit me up, give me your email address. If you want the direct link, you can do that to brian.maceman@att.net. And before we get through the week, I will have a page up on maceman.com as well with our schedule. And, you know, just a little bit of information, and we'll continually be changing that, and probably maybe even put up a picture of the day gallery or something like that in there as well. So that's pretty much what I got now. I'm halfway to Tacoma, or not quite halfway to Tacoma. So, and I'll explain that later.
Well, just keep staying away, keep the rubber on the road, and make sure the mirrors are all in.
You got it. Yeah, I'm staying off those pylons for sure.
All right, buddy. We'll talk again.
All right, thanks, B. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll talk to you all soon.